Hello everyone. Now, in Pokemon, there are things called typings. We usually use these to get the upper advantage against whoever we're battling by picking something it's weak to. However, I decided I wanted to do the complete opposite, so I decided that I need to be weak to every single gym leader we're against. That means their primary type, I have to pick Pokemon that are weak to that. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's easy enough. You can just over-level massively past them and you'll be able to take them down. I figured that would make this too easy, therefore I've imposed level caps where you can't be higher than the gym leader's highest level Pokemon. Also, as a little added bonus, I'm going to try and avoid using TMs wherever possible. Obviously, there is also switch mode in Pokemon, so I've opted to use set mode to make this challenge a bit harder. Also, if you end up liking this video, please could you give me a subscription and a like. It massively helps me out. They're both free and only take 5 seconds to do. If not, just enjoy. We start our journey off by making it to a lake. That's where Professor Rowan is and where we will get our first Pokemon. I decide since there's so few fire types in the game to pick Chimchar, as at least with the other two typings we'll have plenty to play with. We do then run into Rowan, and unlike most of my runs that you see on this channel, we will actually be filling the Pokedex quite a bit, so we're excited to go take it. During my travels to the next area, I had actually picked up a Starly and a Kricketot. Before we can actually get a chance to use them though, we've got to hunt down some clowns and get a fancy watch. After this, we end up having a rival battle, but since his Piplup doesn't have any water moves to take down our Monkey, it can't really touch us, so we just fly through. We even ended up using Ember to take down the water type. We then end up running into an old hiker guy, but he's eyeing up our watch. Now, in usual fashion for Pokemon games, there are a couple of slackers in terms of gym leaders, so we need to get them. He decides he's not happy with us calling us slackers, so he shows his strength by breaking a boulder. I decide if he's going to be like that, I'm not messing around. I'm going to evolve my Kricketot into a Kricketune to ensure destruction. He starts off with his Geodude, but we have Absorb. We're 4 times against him, and it takes 2 shots to take it down, plus healing the damage that he did to us with Rollout. He then has Onix, who wants to crush our Bug with some rocks, but it's not enough, so we just Struggle Bug and then absorb what health we can back. Lastly, we have Cranidos. Now he starts off with a Bulldoze to lower our speed as we use a Struggle Bug. After that, since we're a bit slower, I decide just to absorb my health back. Unfortunately, this puts him in healing range, and when I switch to Struggle Bug, I knock him back into healing range again. Once this stance is done, he ends up headbutting me. That wasn't even close. We flew right past it. No way we'd have lost that, right? With that done, we can then move on to the next typing we've got to be weak to, and that's going to be Grass, so we go and get ourselves a God. Obviously, God at this point isn't water type, so we need to evolve him to get him there. I then have to take down some Galactic scoundrels, but let's be honest, they don't stand a single chance to the power we've got. We then meet the person who's leading these scoundrels in Mars. Now, she's got a pretty strong Pokemon, being her Perugly, but we at this point have an incredibly powerful stab move with Headbutt. Therefore, we don't have to worry whatsoever. Peppa, you're stinky! Now, in these games, there's something called the Grand Underground, and it's going to make us able to get a full team on quite a few of these gyms, and this next one, we will need one, so we go there to get a load. Now, we're ready to take on Gardenia. I start off with God as always, and try and waste her potions by knocking Cherubi low. This works until she's eventually out, and then we can take him down. After that, we've got the Turtwig, and this poses quite an issue. It sets up a Reflect against us. This means that even if we headbutt again, we will not take it out. Then, on the next turn, it decides it wants to be absolutely horrible and crit us with a Razor Leaf. This doesn't stop us from taking it out, but we're now incredibly low for when the Roserade comes out. Now, Roserade is a final stage evolution and amazingly powerful for this early in the game. Because of this, she absolutely sweeps my entire team. Like, it's not even close. She one-shots all of them. At this point, I knew my plan wasn't going to work, so I go and have a bit of a walk. I try and decide what I need to do to get past this gym. I then remember, most of the rock types at this point are ground type as well, and most of them learn the move called Bulldoze incredibly early. On top of that, if we get one with Sturdy, it can't actually be one-shot by the Roserade, so we're always going to get one Bulldoze off to lower its speed. And with catching them, we're now ready to start on the next gym. I start off the exact same, Bibarel wasting the potions and then taking down the Cherubi. The Turtwig then does come out and we do major damage with a headbutt, but just as it did last time, it sets up a Reflect. Now, Razor Leaf is a physical move, so I set up some defense curls to try and avoid getting hit by it. Then, once we're 2 hits away from the reflect wearing off, I actually decide to take the Turtwig down, and it didn't crit us, so it did do much damage. However, you may have noticed, we've leveled up. This was strategic, as at level 23, Bibarel actually learns Yawn, which is going to be needed to take down the Roserade. Obviously, right now it's faster than us, and since we're on set mode, we've got to be really careful. Therefore, I decide the best thing to do is bring in Golduck and sack it. This then means we get a free switch into the Geodude. Now, the Geodude does get hit incredibly low, but Sturdy makes it so it can't go down. After that, he can set up a Bulldoze and lower the speed. I'm not quite ready to lose him at this point, so I decide the best thing to do is to sack the Gastrodon. This makes it safe to bring out Bibarel, and Bibarel can go ahead and use a Yawn. She does manage to stun us and then take us out, but by the time we're taken out, that's her first turn of sleep. With it asleep, we can get a few free Bulldozes off, and this is going to make it so it doesn't matter even if it wakes up. All our Pokemon are faster, so we will be able to take it down. And it's lucky we did, because it did wake up incredibly quickly. The next Pokemon I decide to use is Weasel. It knows Bite, so there's a chance of a flinch. We go for a Bite, we don't get the flinch, and then it ends up stunning us. Because of this, I know it's going down, so I use Quick Attack just to get a bit of damage on it. And we are down to our last Pokemon, but as I said, at this point we're actually faster than it, so we just need to use one Smackdown and we have made it through the gym. Next up, we're weak to fighting, and there is a decent bit of story with Team Galactic between here, but because we've got rock types, they don't really do much and we fly through, so I'm just going to skip it. Now at this point, we're ready for Maylene. She starts off with her Meditype, but I just use Yawn so I can get it to sleep. Once this is done, I decide to go for Defense Curl. Now, a cool thing about Defense Curl is it actually ups the power of Rollout if used, and on top of that, this is a physical gym, so having that saves us taking so much damage. When it wakes up, we do get Drain Punched a couple of times, but then we can just begin our Rollout Massacre. She does end up taking us to 4 health with the Lucario, but it can't withstand 1 Rollout. Plus, even if it did, we still have 2 Pokemon in the back to take it down with. Now for this next section, we're against the water. Literally the only thing that we have to do for this section is help Dawn get a Pokedex back though, so there's not much to talk about. Therefore, I decide to change my outfit to look more British. And with that, we might as well take Wake On. He starts off with a Gyarados, so I decide to start off with my Onix. Yeah, this was a bad idea though. I expect him to live 1 hit, but he doesn't. I then decide at this point the only thing we can do is switch into Monferno. But yeah, that gets taken down too. And so does literally everything else. This was just a bad plan going in, I'm not going to lie. Now, I had to think of a plan that would actually work against Wake. And believe it or not, the answer to this is one little Hippo boy. You see, Hippopotas actually has the ability Sandstream. This means once it comes in, it actually sets up a Sandstorm. Something cool about Sandstorm in these games is it actually gives rock types a 50% boost to their special defense. This means both my Graveler and Onix are actually quite safe because they'll have just enough health to tank a hit. And with that, we're ready to take on Wake again. He starts off with Gyarados, so obviously I've got Hippopotas at the front. He sets up his Sandstream and it gives me the ability to use the move Yawn. Unfortunately, on the turn beforehand, he does manage to take him out, but it's not really much of a worry as this gives us a chance to set up with our Onix. I managed to get 2 Rock Polish and a Curse off before he wakes up. This should have meant I one-shot it, but it's a range, so it actually survived. Also means one bad thing, that it is in healing range, which is incredibly scary. Therefore, I bring my Ponyta out. But for some strange reason, he doesn't end up healing it, so we stomp it away. Next up, he's got the big old Quag, and we do try to get some flinches with stomps, but we're not lucky, and we do get taken out. The next Pokemon I choose to use is Monferno, because we can use Power Up Punch to raise its attack. Thankfully, it opts to go for a Rain Dance, so Floatzel is faster, so we can get 2 of these off. Now, Floatzel's incredibly fast, so I just use a Mach Punch to ensure I get a hit off on it. It does pretty decent damage, but he does then heal with a Berry, which is a bit of a shame. Thankfully though, even though I'm down to my last Pokemon, it is the one that has Sturdy. This means it throws an attack at us, we obviously survive it, and then our Bulldoze is enough to finish it off. Worked like a charm, and now we can move on to being weak to Ghosts. Ghosts are a funny one though, there's not that many Pokemon weak to them. And Ghost itself is weak to it, but I figured if we do that, it's kind of contradicting itself. Therefore, I decided to go for Psychic types. After this, we go and cure some Psyduck from headaches. They will have them again in no time though. I saw what Misty's was like in the anime. The Elder then says there's an odd spaceman outside the ruins. It's literally just the guy with a bowl cut though. I know he looks weird, but Spaceman's a bit rude. With all that story done though, we can take on Fantina. The team we've got is actually pretty stacked though. I decided to start off by going for Protect just to see what the Driftling will do. Unfortunately, it uses Fly though. The idea was if it Will-O-Wisp, I can Encore it into it, but it just means I'm going to have to take a hit now. However, since this thing just wants to take us out with Fly, it's easy to take down. All we need to do is hit it the turn before it goes into the sky, and then Protect when it's about to hit us. That's a free takedown. Next up we have Gengar, but this thing is actually weak to Psychic attacks thanks to its Poison typing, so we finish it off in one Psybeam. Finally, she sends out a Miss Magius. Now, we do some decent damage to it, but we then get confused twice in a row, and that causes us to be taken out. Now, I thought Alakazam would one-shot this thing, but it actually only does half health, and a Phantom Force is physical, so it takes the Alakazam out. Because of this, I bring out Bronzong, as I know this thing will actually survive, and it can just use a few Gyro Balls to take it out. And now we've got more than half the gym badges being weak to each leader. We do then have another Barry fight to deal with, but we're weak to Steel. That means we've got a powerful typing in Fairy that we can use. Now, you've probably seen my Fairy run. If you haven't, make sure to check it out after this video. But it definitely made this rival fight a doddle. However, there is one thing I want to do, and that's go to the Iron Island first. This is purely so I can get a Shiny Stone and get a Togekiss. With that, our team's ready, so let's go and take on Byron. He leads Bronzor, so I end up leading Onix. Onix uses Smackdown to make sure that its Levitate goes away, and it sets up a Sandstorm, something which will actually help us thanks to that special defense raise. Therefore, I decide to take a bit of advantage and set a Curse up. It then Trick Rooms, so I decide I want to take advantage of this and lower my speed using Curse so I can overtake it again. Unfortunately for me though, I do hit myself in confusion, and as a result, he ends up being able to hit me and take me down. Because he's been smacked down, I can then bring in my Golem and use a Bulldoze against it. Golem's incredibly strong, so this makes short work of him. I know for a fact he isn't one-shotting a Steelix though, so I decide to bring in Mr. Mime again. Yeah, Fairies are pretty frail for the majority of the time though, so he doesn't last too long. I then decide switching out was a mistake, so I go for a Bulldoze. He doesn't hit me though, he goes for a Sandstorm. This means I actually take him out without taking any hits. Then all that's left is his Bastiodon. We knock it into Sturdy with our Bulldoze, and it does heal an Iron defense, but that's nowhere near enough to stop us taking him out. Why is Byron always so easy? And on to being weak to Ice, I guess. On my journeys, I do see a fish just flailing around. Now I'm trying to lift him up, but it's just not working. I can't do it, he's stuck. I will find the people that did this to your little one, and they will pay. Turns out the people that did this to him are quite pathetic. Literally flew through them. That's not a pun just because we got a load of flying types, but it does fit, doesn't it? Even the one that looks like Rhino out of Spider-Man goes down incredibly easy. Anyway, that's all the story for now, so let's take on Candice. That's so bad. It turns out, though, we literally need one Pokemon to take her down. Staraptor is a phenomenal Pokemon. It knows Wing Attack and Close Combat, all of which are super effective against every single one of her Pokemon. For an early encounter, it's incredibly strong once you get to the later game. Normally, they've dropped off by now. We then have some Barry Consolement, and thankfully the person he lost to told us exactly where they'd be going, so we head off. The mothership. It's taking me. Turns out it was Cyrus's mothership, and he wants to battle us. If you have played this game before, you will fully understand that this battle is a joke. Like, all his Pokemon aren't fully evolved, and to be honest, they're no threat to me. We then get to push a button, but it releases some animals into the wild. Maybe we've made a mistake. Well, we go to apologize for releasing their wild animals, and it turns out we did wind them up a bit. They're not happy with us. So much so that they call their dog on us. We do then have the double fight with Barry, but the only thing that's important about this is you know that I started off with Togekiss and switched out. With that done and the dog actually calmed down and a bit more of a fan of us, we have to battle Cyrus. Now, this is why I started with Togekiss at the start of the last battle, as it knows a fairy move and this is a dark type, and it always crits everyone, so we want someone tanky as well. Fortunately for us though, he doesn't even try and hit us, he just defogs, so 2 fairy winds take it down. His Crobat then comes out, and obviously it knows Cross Poison, which is super effective, but as I said, Togekiss is tanky, so we can take it out before going down with a few air slashes. Togekiss has done a good job, and to be honest, I felt bad sacking it, so I decided just to switch into Bibarel as it's going to tank a waterfall anyway. At this point, he has managed to learn Sword Stance, so I can use one of them and then a Headbutt. He's knocked us low again, and I actually don't want to lose Bibarel either, plus he's using Earthquake, therefore I just bring in Staraptor. This means we get an Intimidate off on him, and we can take him out with an Aerial Ace because his Earthquake couldn't touch us. Finally, all that's left is a Weavile, but we're incredibly strong and he's incredibly weak. That means even with his Berry to stop the fighting move, we still take him down in one with close combat. I really miss the fact we didn't use the Platinum teams for this fight. Rowan tells us that Dialga is sad. Couldn't imagine the Master of Time being sad, but okay.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Now all of that is done, we can now take on Volkner. He does tell us that he's waiting for someone to be strong though, so I'm hoping he at least puts up a fight. I start off with Floatzel and he starts off with Raichu. Now I know he's going to try and get some major damage off with a Volt Switch and then bring Ambipom in, so I just use a Waterfall to get the maximum damage I can off. At this point though, he's too weak to take a Fake Out, therefore I switch into a Pokemon that can be in Togekiss. After that, he does get a Thunderbolt off on us, but it's just one Air Slash and he's out of here. The Raichu comes out again, but obviously he loves switching this thing out, so he Volt Switches us, we get an Air Slash on the Octillery, and then the turn afterwards we can take it down without it even touching us. At this point though, I know he's going to take us out with one more hit, and I actually want a free switch in, therefore I opt to just sack the Togekiss. This makes it so I can bring in my Crobat. He knocks the Luxray low using 2 Cross Poisons. I was using that hoping for a crit, but it didn't work. And then the turn before he takes us out, we actually hold on. Friendship is linked to affection, so there's no way of avoiding this. Therefore, I just went for it. But the last turn, he also gets a crit. Oh, this can be busted at times, can't it? To be fair, though, the Luxray, even if it had been on quite high health, still would have gone down to the close combat that Staraptor's about to use. All that's left now is his Raichu, so I decide to bring my Golduck in. I was hoping he could take a couple of hits, but unfortunately he couldn't, therefore I couldn't get a Screech or a Yawn off. However, it does give us a free switch into Bibarel, and it uses Surf against the Water type for whatever reason. Great choice there, Volkner. This means we managed to get a free Yawn off, putting it to sleep as we get taken out. Then we can just bring Staraptor out and close combat one-shots it. So there wasn't really much need to worry because we would have finished it anyway. And that's it, that's 8 gym badges. Now, for this final section, I did actually want to kind of stay true to the challenge, but obviously you're about to face 4 different types and then Cynthia. Therefore, I decided the best port of call would be to make my Pokemon weak to at least 2 of Cynthia's Pokemon. At the end of the day, if I did it any other way, I don't think it would be fair because obviously if I pick stuff that's weak to some, it's going to be super effective against other Elite Four members. And then with Cynthia herself, if I've got stuff weak to the others, they're actually pretty good against Cynthia herself, so I just opted to avoid that route altogether. The team I ended up picking was Bibarel, Bronzong, Golem, Infernape, Steelix, and Lucario. There is a lot of steel here, but she has a lot of ground, and that's why. And I also kind of wanted Pokemon that already somewhat raised up, just for a, my time perspective. That then leads us on to another Barry fight. He starts off with Staraptor, and I start off with Bibarel, who puts it to sleep with a Yawn. I then switch into my Infernape, who does tank a close combat quite well and can set up some power-up punches. Ideally, I would have got 3 here, but the close combat did make it so it had incredibly low defenses, so we only took 2. This means I don't end up one-shotting the Snorlax, and it gets a Yawn off on us as we take it out. The next Pokemon he uses is his Empoleon, and obviously we can't do anything while we're asleep, so I just let him go down. This gives an opportunity for Lucario, though, who can set up a Swords Dance while he uses Charm. We then have a battle where I use Swords Dance until he attacks, so I can actually have plus attack. Once this happens, I can use 1 close combat and the Empoleon goes down. And quite frankly, because of that Swords Dance and Barry having terrible IVs in this game, they all drop from there. That means we're ready for the final challenge, being the Elite Four. Aaron is a Bug-type trainer. We have an Infernape that managed to learn Acrobatics. I think you can see where this is going. Dustox, Heracross, and Beautifly all fall in one. Vespiquen's a bit more tanky, so she does actually manage to survive more than one and hit us with an Aerial Ace. However, it doesn't matter because she goes down on the next turn. And then finally, we have Drapion. I decide to switch in Bibarel and proceed to miss 2 Super Fangs. 2. That means my Bibarel got taken out before it managed to hit on a 90% accurate move as well. Well, with that done, we can just switch into Golem, and obviously Drapion's got the poison typing, so one Earthquake takes it right out. That done, it is time for us to go into Bertha. We start off with Bibarel, who can use Yawn against a Quagsire as it Toxics us. From there, we can bring in our Lucario, and unfortunately it does use a ground move at that point, so we do take some pretty major damage. However, it doesn't stop us from getting a few Swords Dance set up while he's asleep. We can then proceed to take him out with a close combat, and then she brings out Golem. This is the one Pokemon she has with Sturdy, but we've also got Infernape in the back, so I'm not really worried. I use Extreme Speed just to break the Sturdy and not knock it in healing range, but we actually hold on with Friendship as it hits us with an Earthquake. The idea from here was to sack the Lucario and then just use Power Up Punch or Close Combat with Infernape and sweep through a team, but looks like we don't have to. Double Swords Dance Lucario is obviously more than enough to take down the rest of her team. That then brings us on to Fire Trainer Flint. He starts out with Rapidash and I start out with Infernape, and I do get poisoned when it hits us with a Poison Jab. On top of that, I also don't one-shot it with Acrobatics. This means he has an opportunity to get yet another Poison Jab off on us before we take him down. Got lucky in the last fight, but not on this one. He then brings out his Lopunny, but obviously a close combat's going to take the normal type out. We've then got the Steelix, so I decide it's time just to use a Flame Wheel, hopefully get a burn. Obviously that doesn't happen, therefore we get taken out, but we have knocked him low, so it's not too bad. After that, we bring in Lucario, and I actually misclick and go for a Meteor Mash instead of close combat. I'm not that neurotic on the next turn though, so I can use a close combat and finish it off. Unfortunately though, that does mean I'm now low on health. His next Pokemon is Drifblim, and it actually halves our attack by burning us, so we don't manage to do much damage to it before we get taken out. Thankfully though, we've got Golem in the back, and although he does burn us, we hit him with a Stone Edge, which is obviously going to one-shot. Finally, that brings us to his Infernape, but this thing can't one-shot Golem, we're that tanky, therefore I use a Bulldoze to lower its speed. He then heals it up, and I've dropped his speed yet again thanks to this, so we can just bring in Bibarel, and one Headbutt is more than enough to take it out from this point. And with that done, we've got the final Elite Four member being Lucian. He starts off with Mr. Mime, and I start off with Lucario, who takes it out just using one Meteor Mash. The Medicham then comes out, and this thing's going to high jump kick and take us out, so I switch into a Pokemon that can maybe tank it. Unfortunately, I very misunderstood how bulky Bibarel was compared to this, so he is taken out. This does, however, mean, though, we get a free switch into Infernape, who can use an Acrobatics, which is super effective, so we'll take the Medicham down. After this, though, we have the Alakazam. This thing's faster, it's gonna one-shot, therefore I bring in my Steelix. He manages to get a curse off, as Alakazam just uses Future Sight and Nasty Plot. This means I just need to use an Iron Tail, and that is the Alakazam down with no damage. He then brings in his Girafarig, and this thing does set up a Reflect, so it can tank an Iron Tail, but it can't really do much other than that. Therefore, we just give it another smack and it's down. And now he brings out his last Pokemon in Bronzong, and this is the reason I chose not to sack Infernape. Infernape is the only Pokemon that knows a super effective move against it in Flame Wheel. Obviously, the first turn he goes for a Trick Room to be faster than us, so we're not too worried, but at this point, we have managed to get 2 Flame Wheels off, and that is it done. Now we have the final battle being the one against the champion Cynthia. And I am not going to sugarcoat this. You can't do it. You literally can't do it. That Milotic is way too tanky. Like, without TMs, it's impossible. I honestly tried it for hours and couldn't get anywhere. Therefore, I've decided that I'm going to lift the no TM rule for this final battle. As at the end of the day, we're trying to showcase you can win with Pokemon weak, and hindering them just seems a bit unfair on giving them their full potential. Thing is, though, we're still weak to her, so let's see if we can do it. She starts off with Spiritomb as usual, and I start off with Bronzong, who puts it to sleep before using a few Calm Minds. The idea here is that she'll switch to Sucker Punch because we've raised our special defense that much, which she does do eventually. Then once that's done, we can raise both our special defense and special attack to the max before using a few Hypnosis just to waste the rest of the Sucker Punch PP. One of the Hypnosis hits though, so we don't even have to worry about getting hit from here on out and can take it out using 2 Grass Knots. We then have Gastrodon come out, but obviously that's going to go down to a singular Knot of Grass. Roserade has that fancy poison typing, so 1 Psychic is enough for that. In this game, she made her Lucario a special monster, therefore it can't really touch us and we can take it down using a Psychic. After that, we have that pesky Milotic, but thankfully we've raised our special. All we need to do is take it down with a grass knot. Marvel Scale means nothing to a special move, Milotic. Finally, though, we have her with her Garchomp. And we get incredibly lucky and hold on so we can not take it down with a Psychic. Ah, it would have been such poetic justice, one little bell taking down her entire team. We did get burned anyway, though, so it's not like it really matters as we do get taken out. That, however, does give us a free switch into Golem, and because he wants to Swords Dance, it gives us the opportunity to set up a fair few Bulldoze. We have lowered its speed quite a bit by the time we get taken out. This means we can bring Bibarel in and use a Yawn to get him to sleep. Unfortunately, though, this does end up leading to God's demise. I use a Swords Dance as I don't want to knock it into healing range, and he actually manages to wake up on the turn I use my second one because that would have been enough to take it out, and then he takes us out. However, that means all that's left is to bring in our Infernape. The Pokemon I've been wanting to use for ages is the Pokemon that's going to finish this. One close combat, and Garchomp is down. We actually beat her being weak to the majority of her team. I am baffled by this. Like, genuinely, all my Pokemon had a weakness to most of her Pokemon. It's ridiculous. I'm also really thankful Bronzong didn't have Levitate, as it would have made it so I couldn't bring it into this fight, and obviously it was the key player. With that, we're in the Hall of Fame. I hope you have all enjoyed the video. Thank you for your time, and goodbye.